You had dinner last night with the Raiders. How was that process with them, and did you break it to them that you might not be there at number 7?
The Las Vegas Raiders seem like they really want Anthony Richardson, the Florida Gator. Anthony Richardson had his pro day today with the Florida Gators, and Dave Ziegler was in attendance, and the Raiders had actually had dinner with Anthony Richardson the night before his pro day. Keep in mind, the Raiders have had their eyes on Anthony Richardson for a long time, all the way back in September when they traveled to Tennessee. They also went and watched the Tennessee Volunteers versus the Florida Gators because they wanted to check out this guy, Anthony Richardson, and there are reports by NFL Rookie Watch and tons of other people that general manager Dave Ziegler was intrigued by Anthony Richardson. We're going to take a look at what this all means and break down everything that happened and some more news about Jalen Carter and the Raiders, Josh Jacobs as well, and everything going on with our favorite team in Vegas. Make sure you hit that subscribe button if you want more content from me, WiFiWillie. Guys, if you watch this channel a lot, you know I was recently married, and the one thing that I messed up on the proposal was the ring, was the most important part. And that is why today we are partnering with the original online jeweler all the way from 1999, Blue Nile. Blue Nile has simple tools to help you choose your diamond shape and size, as well as setting styles and metals. They even have a feature where you can build your own ring. You control the whole process, and Blue Nile gives you the resources to make an informed decision so you end up with a quality ring at a great price. Blue Nile actually allows you to create a bigger, more brilliant piece that you can imagine at a price that you're just not going to find at a traditional jeweler. They also give you some 24/7 legendary service with 30-day returns. You get guaranteed service and repair for life. Blue Nile has every order insured and also arrives in packaging that doesn't give away what's inside. So we are partnering with Blue Nile. We are trying to make your moment sparkle. Go to BlueNile.com and use code WiFiWillie. See description box for link and details to get $50 off purchases of $500 or more. Trust me, guys, she's gonna love it. So one of the interesting things that happened at the pro day was mainly how Ziegler went out of his way, the general manager of the Raiders, to show how much he's interested in the guy. And right after he was done with his pro day performance, you have the image right here. People screenshotted it while they're watching it on their television, on their cable, and you have Dave Ziegler right there, right next to Anthony Richardson. He was actually, according to this man that was retweeted, this comedian who was retweeted by Ian Rappaport, so it must be legit if it's retweeted by Ian Rappaport, right? Well, anyways, that picture that we just showed you seems to be an illustration of what this man is describing here, which is the fact that the first non-player to greet Anthony Richardson after his pro day was Raiders general manager Dave Ziegler. And like we just said earlier, they had dinner last night, had their eyes on him since September, and then now he is greeting him, the first guy, immediately after he's done with his pro day, and the Raiders hold the number 7 overall pick in the draft. So is this destiny? Is this really happening? Are we leading towards a direction where the Raiders are going to select Anthony Richardson, and Josh McDaniels can quite possibly revive his offense that he had in 2020 with Cam Newton? Cam Newton, the same Cam Newton who says, how are all these randoms getting jobs? There are not 32 mother effers better than me in the NFL. Yes, that Cam Newton. Josh McDaniels ran a great offense with the guy in 2020. It looked magical for the first part of the season, then Cam Newton got sick. And it was really interesting though from my perspective because Cam Newton was able to carry an offense that did not have many weapons. And we've been talking about this all the way from January, thinking this is a possibility. Josh McDaniels could maybe try to utilize this type of offense in Vegas. Maybe he liked the experience with Cam Newton. And we know that Mac Jones went on to replace Cam Newton. Cam Newton never really had an opportunity with the Patriots after that. But Josh McDaniels claimed to really like the guy. And then David Carr. We know David Carr doesn't like Josh McDaniels and he throws a ton of shade, but I still think he has some insight as to what Josh McDaniels wants at quarterback because his brother just previously worked with him, and the dude said that Anthony Richardson would be a perfect fit for McDaniels.
Yeah, so knowing what I know about Josh McDaniels, his offense, what the team is like from an intricate level, what I would do is I would draft a guy like Anthony Richardson or Will Levis, all right, a guy that can give you a little bit of something running the football, because Josh has history doing that, right? He did it with Cam most recently. He drafted Tim Tebow, right? So he wants to play that style.
So maybe things are lining up. The Raiders have Jimmy Garoppolo right now. And I think if you have Jimmy Garoppolo, you believe that he deserves a shot to at least start 1 year on your team, then I think you're not going to go out there and trade up to draft a Bryce Young or a CJ Stroud. And you're not even going to maybe get a guy like Will Levis, a guy who I think is a little more ready day one to play in the NFL than Anthony Richardson. I think Anthony Richardson starts to make more sense for the Raiders if you're going to let him sit behind a guy like Garoppolo, give Garoppolo a shot. And look, hey, Garoppolo has already had some experience with this. He's already had some experience having Trey Lance behind him, ready to take his job at any moment. So this really isn't going to be unusual territory for Garoppolo if the Raiders do go ahead and select Anthony Richardson. Speaking of Jimmy Garoppolo, the Raiders are going to have joint practices against the Niners this upcoming season. They had them against the Patriots last season. I remember how everybody was saying how the offense was so great and Derek Carr and Devontae looked unstoppable against the Patriots in joint practices last season. I wonder what happened to that during the regular season. Anyways, going to be very interesting to see how Jimmy Garoppolo holds up in training camp if he's going to be healthy. We know injuries are a problem for this guy, but I think the bigger story here that's inside this article by The Athletic is the fact that the Raiders apparently are out on Jalen Carter. They are not interested in pursuing somebody like Jalen Carter just because he's having some incidents with the law right now. 2 misdemeanors due to a car accident that happened in college. Don't want to have that happen again in Vegas, and the Ruggs history makes it difficult to draft this guy. However, can we really be sure that the Raiders are out on Jalen Carter just because The Athletic says so? According to Jermaine Illuminor, you got to take this all with a grain of salt because The Athletic, the paper, is not the GM. And I think the main point and the main thing that he's trying to highlight here is why would the Raiders give up their hand? Why would the Raiders say, oh, just before the draft, I'm going to let all these other 31 teams know that we're not going to select Jalen Carter. So don't worry about us if you're thinking about trading up ahead to make sure you get that guy. We're letting you guys all know our plan ahead of time. Yeah, no crap. The Raiders aren't going to do that, right? And also, with this Anthony Richardson interest, take it with the grain of salt. Are the Raiders really going to try to show the whole entire NFL and all these other 31 teams, oh yeah, we definitely want Anthony Richardson, so make sure you trade up ahead of us to select him, right? So there's some tactics going on here. I find it very unusual and highly suspect that the Raiders, Josh McDaniels and Dave Ziegler in particular, were not in person at Will Levis's pro day. Instead, they had assistant GM Champ Kelly and other people there. Maybe they're trying to throw some smoke bombs here and there so you do not know where they're going. And maybe the Raiders are acting like they're so into Anthony Richardson and not into Jalen Carter at all because it's the exact opposite, right? And that's what's so fun about this before the draft, because we're really going to figure all this crap out in like less than 35 days. Less than 35 days, we're finally going to know who the Raiders select in the draft. Josh Jacobs is going to be a key contributor to the Raiders. And really, if the Raiders don't have Josh Jacobs and you look at the offense, in my opinion, it's a lot less dangerous. A lot less dangerous when you think about the absence of Josh Jacobs. If he's not there, if he maybe isn't too happy about playing on the franchise tag, well, we don't know how he's necessarily feeling because he's made cryptic messages on social media ever since he's been franchise tagged. And now, according to The Athletic and according to this interview that happened with Mark Davis, the Raiders have not started meaningful negotiations on a long-term deal with Josh Jacobs since the franchise tag was applied. So clearly there's no progress happening. I don't know if the Raiders are just not talking to him, not trying to start any new negotiations because they already have him playing on the tag this year and they're just going to expect him to show up this year. Maybe Jacobs' side is not talking. Who knows? But there's been no communication on a long-term deal. Mark Davis says some nice things about him and says that, I wish we had 22 Josh Jacobs is. Oh, well, whatever. You know how to get one Josh Jacobs long-term. You lock him in and you pay him a long-term contract, which is what the guy wants after he became the number one running back in the NFL. So this is going to be a tricky situation, and I don't think it's completely resolved yet. In the same article by Vic Tafur in The Athletic that talked about how the Raiders are not interested in Jalen Carter and some of Mark Davis's recent comments about the front office, in this article as well, they also talked about the fact that a lot of people are hearing that 4 quarterbacks are going to be taken within the first 4 picks. Those are the rumors. That's the buzz going on before the draft. Like I said before, take all this with a grain of salt because it's never happened in NFL history that 4 quarterbacks back to back have been taken with the first 4 picks of the draft. It's never happened, and they are anticipating that it happens perhaps this year. And they also anticipate that, Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, these are going to be the first 2 people taken. Arizona trades back with Seattle. Maybe Seattle gets in the mix for a quarterback, and then Indianapolis stays and obviously takes a quarterback. A lot of people think Anthony Richardson would be Indianapolis's guy because they have that same style of offense with a running style quarterback. quarterback from the head coach's time with the Philadelphia Eagles, but the Raiders sit here at 7. I find the odds, if 4 quarterbacks are really going to be taken within the top 5 picks, if that's really going to happen, if we really are going to just go ahead and agree with that, then I think the Raiders obviously have to trade up with Arizona in order to secure that number 3 overall pick. We know that there was talks that the Raiders were interested in DeAndre Hopkins, and it kind of made us scratch our heads and think, well, why would the Raiders be interested in DeAndre Hopkins when they have all these wide receivers that they keep signing in free agency? Okay, maybe you move on from Hunter Renfrow, okay, but you still signed a good amount of guys. Cam Sims, DeAndre Carter, right? And many others. Keelan Cole, he's going to be back. But if you think about the Raiders trading up to pick number 3 in order to, maybe take on that DeAndre Hopkins contract, make the trade up to number 3 with Arizona more enticing by being willing to take on some of that contract or a good amount of that contract, okay, then a trade for DeAndre Hopkins makes a little more sense there. So perhaps that's in play if they really believe in Richardson, or maybe, just maybe, this is all smoke and they're planning on drafting defense anyways at pick number 7, and they are doing some nice Jedi mind tricks to trick the rest of the NFL into thinking that they want the Florida Gator. I don't know. You let me know in the comments below, and we'll keep you up to date on everything happening with the Raiders on this channel. My name is WiFiWillie. Peace out, and I hope you have a good one.